Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Sinner's Pew. That's right, I found a name for this. Today, joining us, we have Godless Engineer and KC, who also appears on the Godless Engineer channel. If you haven't heard of them, somehow, links to them in the description below. So, how you guys doing?
We're doing all right.
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Now, right now, this is being streamed on my main channel, but The Sinner's Pew now has its own channel. I have a link to that in the description below. I encourage everyone watching to go there, subscribe, watch a video. Eventually in the future, these streams will take place there, but for now, I don't have that many people there. So just subscribe there, give me some views. Let's try to get monetization enabled there. And if in the future, we will have this on that channel. So subscribe to that. And I forgot what else I was going to say. I'm terrible at this. I'm new to this.
I do that all the time.
Yeah. But I mean, you two guys have your own podcast, right? The Daily Bible Podcast, which is not daily. So I think you're doing it wrong.
Well, the book is called the Daily Bible, the book that we're using.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean we're just going day by day. So yeah, we're only producing it once a week. But I mean that if we did it day by day, I mean that would be our full-time job, and it doesn't really pay that well.
At all. The Daily Bible. It's one of those where it's broken up the Bible into readings for 365 days a year, so it makes it easier to read.
Yeah,
supposedly.
Yeah, and they have some parts in it where it's just like, here's the Bible verse, you need to read about it. Like the one that we just recorded today, it was talking about how like soldiers can marry people that they've conquered or women that they've taken as slaves.
Captured. Yeah, as prisoners of war.
And like in the Daily Bible, it just says this is the verse, and like they don't offer any explanation for it. They're just like, it's there.
Yeah, it gives you the verse and it says marrying captives, like not taking them and raping them, marrying them.
Yeah. Well, are you guys ready for some Sunday, well I guess it's afternoon now, but some Sunday church?
Oh, definitely. To be honest, I always fell asleep in church. So this is actually vastly different from me actually being a believer.
I mean, you went to Catholic Mass. How did you fall asleep? You're always standing up, sitting down, kneeling, and doing all kinds of crazy shit. I mean, you have to do calisthenics at church. How did you go to sleep?
Well, I mean, at some point, it just becomes automatic,
That's true.
And then it like, I don't start paying attention until it's like, I think it's like the last time you got to get on your knees and suck Jesus' dick. And then after that point, you're like, oh, good, we're almost done.
Oh, I forgot to ask on this channel, do we have like cussing? Do we have,
oh, yeah, should I
guidelines?
not?
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine for the live streams. I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah. But
it's usually something I ask beforehand because I may or may not have a potty mouth.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry. I knew that coming into this. You're fine. You're all right.
Good deal.
But, I always thought that if you want something out of church, you can choose, what church you want to go to for that. Like, if you want to listen to some good music, go to some newer, hip churches. If you want to just sit in quiet, you go to, like, a Baptist church or something. And if you really want some exercise, go to a Catholic church. With all the standing up, sitting down, it's a workout.
It is.
Well, I don't know. There are some southern churches where, they get up and they do a boogie.
Oh, yeah. Baptist church. You say if you want to sit in quiet, go to a Baptist church. But I don't know what Baptist church you've been to, because the Baptist churches in the South, they crazy.
Well, I don't know about that. I've been to Baptist churches where they're very serene and serious and whatnot.
Yeah, those are the only Baptist churches I've been to.
Oh,
but there are very specific ones that are very up and flamboyant and like just very dancing and everything like that. And I don't want to point out any certain characteristics of those kind of churches, but everybody knows which ones I'm talking about.
Yeah, like the Pentecostal type churches.
Oh, well, Pentecostal. Yeah, Pentecostals are even crazier.
Yeah.
Than the what do they call it? It's not flamboyant. They have a word for it. than the more spirited Baptist churches. The Pentecostals, man, those people, even if you don't go as far as the snake handling Pentecostals, regular Pentecostal churches, man, they fall out in the spirit and like speak in tongues, and they're bananas. Those places are crazy. Stay away from Pentecostal churches if you want your sanity intact.
Yeah, I never went to a Pentecostal church, but I looked up some sermons like a long time ago, and I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. But today we have a more modern, more hip church. We're starting like 10 minutes in because he doesn't say anything for 10 minutes. So, here we go.
So here we go. So this question of atheism versus agnosticism. We talk about what these two terms mean. Most of us have heard these words, and really knowing the difference between the two is important. And we talk about atheism, and this is taken from two words, a, which is a prefix that means without, and theism, which is belief in God. So atheism is literally a lack of belief in God or in supernatural beings.
Well, I'm surprised that he actually got it right this time.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, and I mean, you could go into the philosophical distinctions between like the two, because like I know Steve McRae would shit his pants right now.
Yeah.
But I think in the like how everybody actually uses it, I mean, I think this is a decent definition.
Yeah, I mean, I find that pretty much everybody who calls themselves atheists, this is the definition that they use, but it's not the definition that like anyone else uses, especially, you know, churches like this. So I'm really surprised to see that they went with this definition.
And agnosticism,
yeah, I think it's fair.
Yeah, me too.
Is similar to it, but a little bit different. Agnosticism is the view that the existence of God is impossible to be known, or it's impossible to be proven. We'll dig into that just a little bit more. The word...
Well, this agnosticism could also be you don't claim to know whether or not you think it's possible. So, yeah.
Well, so what I think is interesting is because I don't necessarily accept, like when people say I'm agnostic, to me that means nothing, because agnostic can be applied, Gnostic or agnostic can be applied to anything. It only speaks to knowledge, and you have to have something, you have to have a qualifier. Agnostic of what? About what? And so to me, like, agnostic isn't a thing. A lot of people would disagree, and I know people use it colloquially to mean like, I don't know if a God exists or not. And that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying that people can't do that, but to me, that doesn't mean anything. You don't know if a God exists, that's fine. But I think most atheists are agnostic atheists because they don't know. They can't 100% know for certain that a God doesn't that no gods exist, but they don't believe any do.
Yeah.
So I think that's where most atheists probably sit.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And that you could also call that like negative atheism or weak atheism. But
that's a term that's been that has also been used to describe it, weak atheism.
Yeah.
And then strong atheism would be the Gnostic. And then there's also strong theism, which would be like a Gnostic kind of theism. And I like here how in the top it's a lack of belief, but then down here it talks about knowledge. And it's like they seem to equate beliefs and knowledge, because I mean, but beliefs aren't knowledge. Like knowledge is kind of a different thing than what you believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I haven't watched this before, so I don't know if he says you can be that these aren't mutually exclusive. But I do want to say that Gnosticism isn't actually necessarily related to agnosticism. Gnosticism are like early weird forms of Christianity that came before it was like structured and stuff. So like when
go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't like using the term Gnostic in that way just because of how confusing it is.
I agree. I think that Gnostics is a very bad way to reference those kind of sects of Christianity, because the reason why they're called Gnostics is because they proclaim to have special knowledge about like the afterlife and whatnot. So I mean that's why they were originally called the Gnostics. But I agree that that's a very bad term to use for them, because Gnostic just is a knowledge claim. So I think that they're different contexts, but I get wanting to, shy away from using it just because of how interchangeable they seem to have become.
Yeah, see, I prefer to use Gnostic as far as the opposite of agnostic. I prefer to use it in its actual, how it's defined. But you guys are right. The Gnostic Gospels, the Gnostics, that's what they're called, and I think they're misnamed.
Okay.
Agnostic essentially means without knowledge. If we can't know. We can't know if there is a God. We can't know if there isn't a God. And so we're just really not going to bother knowing, because there's really no way to prove it definitively. And while both of these worldviews do not...
I think that while you cannot necessarily know for sure that, say, a deistic God exists, I still think that it's fair to believe that he does not exist. Like, Russell's teapot. It's if someone was to assert that there was a teapot floating in space between the Earth and Mars, this isn't how the argument usually goes, but I think that it's far more reasonable to believe that there isn't one than to believe that there is. I think it's fair to say that there is none out there because there's no indication of it.
Right. Yeah, and I would say that being a strong atheist on a specific definition of God is totally reasonable, because these definitions of God that we have, we can test, and if they fail those tests, then I mean, for all intents and purposes, they don't exist. And so I think that you can be a strong atheist on specific gods and whatnot, because I mean, most people, like even Christians, are strong atheists on like any other kind of God definition other than, the one that that they particularly believe in. Yeah. I wouldn't describe them as strong atheists, but I'm just saying that they strongly, think that they don't exist, and they actively think that they don't exist. And so it's just, it's kind of that whole we go one God further kind of thing to their own particular definition of God, which fails, any test that we can levy at it.
Yeah, I agree. Like, generally speaking, I'm an agnostic atheist, but I am Gnostic on the fact that I'm sure that the Abrahamic God, the God of the Bible, the God that they describe, does not exist.
Oh, yeah.
Because, yeah, definitely. I can't say for certain that there is no higher powered deity out there. I don't think that there is, because there's no evidence of any, but I can't know it for sure. But I know that the stories that they tell about that guy doesn't exist.
Yeah, but do you think that there would be a fair argument that could be made to say that no God exists, no deistic God exists, on the basis that there's no evidence, so it'd be more reasonable to think that there is no deistic God?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's a reasonable position to hold. Like to believe that there's not one, I think that that's a reasonable position. But to claim that that there's not one is a totally different claim. And yeah. I get the feeling that this guy doesn't really know the difference between the two, because like Tesla Ranger in the comments pointed out, he's actually describing an apatheist rather than an agnostic.
Yeah.
I thought that was an important distinction to make.
Yeah, well, I think what he's saying is that he gave a decent definition of agnostic, but then said that, that leads to apatheism.
Right.
Yeah.
Most of the time want to be categorized as a religion. Essentially, they do the same thing as a religion, and for many, they function as a religion. Because a religion answers the questions that all of humanity has and provides an answer to that. Questions like, where did we come from?
Okay, so okay, atheism answers questions. I think he's talking about atheism now. But it answers questions like, where did we come from? They function just like religions, guys, because they have answers.
Well, I think that he's doing a common, like, I guess, creationist or religious thing where they mesh multiple concepts together and claim that it's a worldview or that they all go together.
Yeah.
Like, normally you see this with young earth creationists when they attack evolution, and they claim that, like, evolution talks about the Big Bang, or they mix the Big Bang in with evolution. But here it seems like he's doing the same thing, except he's meshing atheism and, like, scientific discovery.
Oh yeah. They do that all the time.
Yeah, it seems like he's taking where you have how Christianity or whatever religion explains these things, he's saying atheism explains these things. And that's not accurate at all. Atheism answers a question. Do you believe in God or not? And so, or do you believe in deities? It doesn't even have to be like the Christian God. Do you believe in supernatural deities? Do you believe in that? Yes or no? That's all atheism is. So it doesn't explain anything else at all.
Yeah. I think the trouble is that people who are like advocating for atheism, they tend to be, the skeptically minded, the scientifically minded. So I can sort of understand that that's pretty much all you hear of atheists, because like if you're not like skeptically or like scientifically minded, then you probably don't really want to argue about your lack of religion, right?
Well, maybe, but there are plenty of atheists that like believe in woo stuff. Like, I mean, atheists are not, just because we don't believe in gods doesn't mean that we are immune from having bad ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So,
monotheistic religions say that we were created by God. Christianity says we were created by God in his image. And so all religions have some sort of an answer to this question of origin. Where did we come from? And atheism and agnosticism attempt to answer that question as well.
But that doesn't make them equal to religions. The key is if you have a reason to believe that explanation. In religions, you are taught that that's where the world's come from just because, and you don't necessarily have indication of that. With, science, not atheism, but science, there's a reason why we think this. There's a way we came to that conclusion, and it's reasonable, it's verifiable. This doesn't make it equivalent to religion.
Well, yeah, and I think a religion, there are specific criteria of what makes a religion. Right. And I mean, you can say legally speaking or just generally speaking, but usually religions have a recognized creed. They have a doctrine, they have dogma, they have formal worship types of services and traditions and things that they do. They have disciplines, they have rules, they usually have a religious history if they're not new. And atheism doesn't scratch any of those things.
Right.
Well, true. I feel like he's confusing atheism, like the idea or just the bare essentials of what atheism is, and that's just the answer to one question: do you believe a God exists? And I feel like he's confusing that with the actual people, because the people can have explanations as to where we came from and whatnot, but that doesn't make atheism a religion. That's just people have what they believe as far as where we came from and whatnot. And for the most part, atheists do side with scientific reasoning.
Yeah.
And that's where he's kind of confusing the two, is that he's taking atheism, the principle, versus the people that hold the atheist position.
Well, it's just another position. It's a separate position. See, like with religion, so if you say like Catholicism, well, Catholicism is their religion, but it also, through their teachings, answers all of these questions. So our atheism, right? it doesn't do that. It doesn't do that. We don't have like worship leaders. Like we don't have that. It's just a position. Okay, so everything else that we think and believe and hold to in regards to creation or evolution or any other thing, anything at all, it's a separate position. And religion meshes it all together, and we don't do that.
Yeah, but what I'm concerned about, what I think he's going to do, because we're already halfway there, I think he's trying to say that, oh, all of these religions, they try to answer the same questions. So atheism, or whatever he's conflating with atheism, it's just as good as Christianity. So let's see what direction he takes with this.
Identity. Who are we? As humans, we can look at the created order and we can know that we are different from everything else in the created order. We don't see cows composing symphonies. We don't see frogs doing stand-up comedy, although that would be awesome. But it doesn't happen. And so we can look at ourselves and we can look at humanity and understand there's something distinctly different about us. And every religion attempts to answer that question. Who are we and why are we different?
Yeah, anything to add on that?
Well, yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, other than I would love to see, what was it, dancing frogs singing?
Stand up. Frogs doing stand-up comedy.
Frogs doing stand-up comedy.
But,
I mean, I'd love to see that. Like,
but
one day I was eating at these flies, I couldn't get them. Human had a phone in front of me. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that other animals don't exhibit the exact same things that we do, but like there are similarities in us and some other animals that have higher brain functions than other animals. I mean, some animals are purely instinct and don't have, and I mean insects too, but there are some that display empathy, that show problem solving abilities and things like that. So yeah, we are different, but we're not that different.
Yeah. I apologize for everyone watching. It looks like my internet is not doing so well. I apologize, but there's not much I can do about that. But we'll keep continuing.
And the big question of why are we here? That poets and philosophers and songwriters have been asking this question of how do we create meaning in this existence that you and I live in? And so all of these worldviews ask that.
Is he just going to list all of these, just a ton of questions?
Want to know, or all of us kind of have an answer to already by default.
Yeah, I guess so.
How should we live?
How should we live?
Yeah, because...
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, there's no way that atheism tells us how we should live. There's no way. Atheists themselves totally disagree on this matter.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to point out how he's like elements of a worldview, and it's like all of these points are not covered by atheism in general. So I mean, he's proving right now that atheism isn't for us. So I mean, I have to say I commend him for doing that.
Yeah, he's doing a real good job.
He's obviously not painting it as he's proving that, but I mean, he is doing a fabulous job of showing how atheism is not a worldview.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that he's much more fair than other preachers that I've seen.
What's right? What's wrong? What should I do or what shouldn't I do? Or the person that wronged me, is there any sort of standard for conduct for how we conduct ourselves here on this earth?
I think we know where he's going to go with that, but I guess we'll get to that. We'll see.
And the question that all of us ask is, where are we going? Is this it? Like the only thing that everyone 200
destiny.
Yeah, like when we die, there's nothing after that, and I guess they just can't handle that. We'll see. We'll see what he says.
We're all going to hell, I can tell you that right now.
All right. 1 second. Okay, my internet's messing up really badly. All right. Okay, well... Alright, take, I'll be back. I need to get all of this internet stuff sorted out, so 2 seconds.
Okay.
Professor Stick said, "Your poor internet made me watch another ad." Are we still on air? We can just say whatever we want right now. He said something that I wanted to tell a story about, but I can't remember what it was now. Oh no, he put up the BRB. I don't know if they can hear while the BRB is up. Are we still on air? GE, tell a story. You want to play the ukulele? GE's going to entertain y'all with some ukulele.
My uke is over there.
Oh, I got to go get the uke. Yeah. We're going to play some church music for y'all now.
This is what I like to call the G chord.
Is that different from the G spot?
I think we just got him demonetized for mentioning that.
Oh, shit. People know not to have us on their channel.
We'll be right back with the show. This preacher's not too bad, but he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah. That's a good
any tips are welcomed. Please tip your musician.
Tesla said,
Play
I
Freebird.
get bands outside my apartment, and some of them are worse than GE on ukulele. We realized that they could still hear us, so we decided to entertain.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. My internet is... It's better. You guys probably don't see much, or whatever you see probably doesn't look very good, but this is what we have to work with. Eventually, this will actually be in audio podcast form, so you'll be able to at least enjoy the audio as it was meant to be in the future. But
yeah, we had a break. We had a church song on the break.
A church song? What's that?
Yeah. G played the ukulele and he sang a song.
Yeah, but what song?
Oh no, he just makes up songs. Like he doesn't play actual songs.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm creative like that.
Yes. Right. They're GE originals. You're lucky.
All right.
Years ago has in common is they're all dead. And we will all die. That is inevitable. All of us can see that. That is an observable truth of the universe, that every living thing will someday die. And the question is, when we die, what happens?
Why would we
shit your pants?
Literally, that is what happened. But like, I don't think that's what he means.
But I mean, why? I don't really get why you would think that there has to be something else out there. It's not reasonable for me to think that there's anything